Hello, good evening. It's 10 p.m. in Accra, 11 p.m. in Abuja, Nigeria, and 1 a.m. in Shanghai. I'm Stephen Enti. This is News at 10. Wherever you are, you can follow our live stream on Facebook and on 3news.com. Let's start with the major news highlights of the day. Let's take a quick look at the major news highlights of the day. Public Relations Officer of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technologies says the management's decision to convert Katanga and Unity halls into mixed halls is to meet the demands of the increasing female population. He indicated stakeholder consultations have taken place, hence it is not a unilateral decision by the university. And authorities of the Mpoho Health Center are calling on government to upgrade it into a hospital to enable them improve on healthcare delivery for the almost 60,000 residents. They say the absence of some important facilities is having an adverse effect. And also tonight, Ghanai's Municipal Chief Executive Janet Tulasi Mensah has said the Assembly will not fail to prosecute house owners who refuse to take advantage of the Gamma project when it ends in July this year. At the relaunch of the Gamma project in the municipality, the MC said the radical sanctions to be applied by the Assembly is to ensure the achievement of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 6. And an opportunity to clinch a major world title slipped through the hands of boxing prodigy Habib Ahmed as he fails to unearth the WBO World Super Middleweight title belt. The champion, Mexican-born Gilberto Ramirez, defeated the Ghanaian in a 6th round technical knockout to retain his championship glory. Let's start with the first story. Key GET Fund projects in the Nkranza municipality in the Bunahafu region have been abandoned for several months, affecting academic work in the affected schools. Some of the projects which commenced in 2014 are at varying levels below completion due to non-payment of contract fees. Here's a report by correspondent Johnson Tichi.
Bredi number 2 Basic Primary School is one of the most affected schools, resulting in delays in the completion of the GET Fund classrooms. Kindergarten pupils, as a result, study under trees.
G, F, J, H.
Construction of the school started in 2002 and has not been completed till date. The situation is no different in the Kwabere Senior High School. 4 key GET Fund projects, which started in the school between 2014 and 2016, are yet to be completed. Some portion of the girls' dormitory have been turned into an ICT center. The boys' dormitory are now being used as classrooms, and the head teacher's bungalow is also serving as offices. The headmaster of the Kwabere Senior High School is Frimpong Nicholas.
This is a multi-purpose down hall complex. We need it badly, and yet the people are not coming. If we had roofed it, we could have at least improvised to do a lot of things. And yet the roofing, we have been calling, we have written series of letters, we have gone to Accra.
The district chief executive of Nkranza Municipal Assembly, Dina Atakusiwa, assured of completion of the stalled project.
What I will do is, I will ensure that they've done a good work there. Other than that, when their certificates are ready, I'll make sure that I'm not going to sign it until they do the proper work.
And the school authorities in some senior high schools in Ashanti region have also lauded government's move to release money for the completion of key GET Fund projects across the country. They say abandoned GET Fund projects in their schools have been impeding effective teaching and learning. Here is another report by Ibrahim Abubakar.
Government has announced paying more than half of 1.6 billion cedis old Gates Fund contractors in the country, but a visit to some abandoned Gates Fund projects in some senior high schools within the Kwabre East District tells a different story. A 12-unit classroom block at the Adventist Girls SHS, which has been abandoned for the past 8 years, is still standing untouched. The contractor says he is yet to receive any money from the government to enable him return to site. The non-completion of the project has compelled school authorities to convert their dining hall and portion of their dormitory block to classrooms. The situation, according to the headmistress, is impacting negatively on academic work.
We have informed all the necessary stakeholders. We've written several letters. As for this video that you are capturing, this is not the first time. We have been praying and still the problem is still lack of funds. So we are hoping that at least this one will be an intervention from God so that we can have it completed for the students to have their effective teaching and learning there.
At Adamumase Senior High School, the situation was not different. The contractor of a 1-unit story boys' dormitory block has also abandoned the Get Fund project since 2010. The block is at the completion stage, but school authorities say the contractor is reluctant to come back because he has not been paid. Assistant Headmaster James Appiah says completion of the dormitory block will enable them admit more boarding students.
We are limited to the few facilities that we have, and we admit in accordance with what we have. So if it is completed, it will help us to admit, it will pave a way for us to admit more boarders.
District Chief Executive of Kwabre East, Nana Osei Bonsu, is appealing to the President to consider completing some key Gates Fund projects within senior high schools in his district.
When we come to Kwabre, we have 6 schools, senior high schools, and all the schools are having deficit in the area of dormitories, the area of administrative blocks, the area of classrooms, and a lot of things. So we are making a humble appeal to government to come to Kwabre East and help us so that when the school begins next time, we are not going to have that problems.
Let's get on to the telephone lines and speak with the Executive Director of Child's Rights International, Bright Appiah, on this matter. Good evening, sir, and thank you very much. Welcome to News at 10.
Good evening, Auntie.
So there's the argument that the stalling of these Get Fund projects is affecting the right of education of children really holds since funds have not been secured for the completion of the projects.
Yeah, well, that is true because once we embark on a project that is facilitate education, and the project is not going as we expected, and we expect children to also enjoy the facilities, and the facilities are not available, then of course we can say that that is the kind of situation that we find ourselves in. But there are a lot of issues that for me we can look at in relation to the operations of Get Fund itself, because if you look at the analysis and amount of money that we get through the tax revenue service to Get Fund, it should be enough to deal with some of the issues. But clearly, we are always in the excess in arrears for, even as we speak. We owe contracts that have been awarded 2 years ago. Monies are not ready to be paid to the contractors. So clearly, you see that there's a deficit that we need to fill. But whatever it is, I think that we have to streamline the way and manner and Get Funds, utilize the data resources, and then probably we can get them to do their core business.
So, from where you stand, what indication is this actually giving off? I mean, in terms of government seriousness in improving education infrastructure and all?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a statutory fund. Therefore, there's all the time there should be money in that account, to the extent that if you look at the Get Fund Act, it tells you the steps that the board need to take to retrieve their money from the Ministry of Finance, and then they should also design a separate account for the services that they are going to render based on the object of the Get Fund itself. So clearly, there's a directive in terms of our legislation as to what they should do. So what we expect is that it's not really an issue the government is not committed, but it's an issue of how do we utilize the resources that get to get funds, and as to whether or not the allocation that have been made based on the tax revenue that we get to get funds to get those resources and all that. Those are the questions that we need to ask. Then again, I think that one of the major things that we should be interested in is the allocation of the resources. Because if you look at the Act, it shows clearly the allocation must be done based on a different account for the tertiary, second cycle, basic school, and even early childhood schools and all that. So we have a formula, which of course Parliament expects that every year GETFund will submit a formula for the distribution of that resources. So for me, those are the tracing mechanisms that we have to put in place to know whether indeed GETFund is using the money to do what they are supposed to do. But if you look at most of the projects that GETFund has awarded, clearly it shows that for personally the things that they are not doing their core business. That is for me is what is causing this issue. If you look at the amount of money that goes into other related activities that they will classify as education related, if you go into it, you realize that such monies can be used to develop the infrastructure that we talk about, because it's the first object so far as the GETFund is concerned. So I expect that will be a priority, but that's not what we are seeing.
So under the circumstance, will you advise a suit in court, for example, to compel government to complete these projects?
Yeah, you see, the difficulty is that when you look at the object of the GETFund, there is a clause that says that upon consultation with the minister, the GETFund can determine to use part of the money to do educational related programs. And that for me is a loophole in the law that anybody at all can take advantage of it. So if you use GETFund money to construct roads, there should be, they can easily say that there's a justification because there's a school in that area and they want to facilitate the movement of children and all that. So these are things that for me, it makes it very difficult to say that you want to go before the court to determine, because it's part of their object. But I think that as an institution, we have to look at the law and what the priorities are for us to be able to pursue it. And once we do that, I think they'll be able to achieve the kind of object that we want. Right. But if it may be, for instance, it comes to the allocation of the resources where the law says that you have to do the allocation based on having accounts, separate account for tertiary, pre-tertiary, and then even basic school. Once, if they don't determine the formula, then of course we can take them on and then see what can be done in relation to that.
Right, Bright Appiah, we're grateful for your time. Bright Appiah is Executive Director of Child Rights International. Thank you very much for joining us. This is News at 10. We're streaming live on our Facebook page and on 3news.com. We have more news for you. Please don't go away. Welcome back. Now, President Akufo-Addo says Africa has the resources and capacity to finance quality education and promote the interest of the continent. Speaking at the 3rd International Conference on the replenishment of the funds for Global Partnership for Education in Dakar, Senegal, the president said Africa must make its own educational policies suitable to drive economic prosperity.
President Akufo-Addo, who led the Ghanaian delegation at the invitation of President Macky Sall of Senegal and President Emmanuel Macron of France, said the continent must be pragmatic in formulating policies to make education relevant to the needs of its people.
We are going to have to make sure that every young child, boy and girl, have access to education. Not only do they have access to education, but they have access to an education that will allow them to be able to address the challenges of the 21st century.
The president said resources can be put to good use by eliminating corruption in public life. He wants Africa to utilize its wealth on behalf of the people of the continent and not those outside.
We cannot depend on other people to finance the education of our continent. We cannot do that. I'm saying that not to turn my back or turn my nose or to be ungrateful to all these very important and noble people who have committed themselves to helping. No. But that if we make our policy dependent on people, on other people, when their policy changes, we will suffer. But if we make the policy for ourselves, then it means that at all times we will be in control of our own destiny.
Touching on the importance of education to the advancement of the continent, President Akufo-Addo said the paradox of Africa having the youngest population and being the richest continent on the planet, but with the worst living conditions, can only be broken by education.
The Ghana Education Trust Fund has abandoned more than 3 educational infrastructural projects in the Asokore T.I. Ahmadiyya Senior High School in Sechere's district of the Ashanti region for more than 8 years. Headmistress of the school, Hajia Nyantechiwa Boateng, appealed to the GET Fund to release funds to ensure that the projects are completed within the shortest possible time.
We were told many of such projects were abandoned because the contractors were not giving the funds to complete. There is a huge demand for senior high schools in the region and in the area. In some instances, weeds and reptiles have taken over the projects. The completion of the projects will help the school to address infrastructural challenges. Speaking in an interview, Headmistress of the Asokore T.I. Ahmadiyya Senior High School, Hajia Nyantechiwa Boateng, expressed regret the contractor working on the various GET Fund projects on campus had abandoned the project. She said the school needed the abandoned projects badly and appealed to government to, as a matter of urgency, ensure that the contractor returns to site to complete the project.
We've been sending letters upon letters, and then I've been visiting the GET Fund offices for quite a long time. And yes, sir, initially the near completed one was also having an issue. We visited the headquarters and the contractor came to site. Then along the line he stopped again.
She noted a lot of investment had gone into the projects.
It's actually affecting us because most of the rooms that the girls are using are choked, and ventilation is a problem there. And usually when it's like that, if there is malaria or whatever happens, you know, most of them will be affected.
And over 200 structures have been demolished at the railway quarters known as the CMB in Accra. The exercise carried out by the Ghana Railway Development Authority is to pave way for the private commercial development of the area.
5 a.m. Sunday, the demolition had already started. By 9 a.m., over 100 structures had been demolished. Personnel from NADMO and the police were there to provide support. The final notice given to residents here was in June last year, but residents lament it was short.
We expected the authorities to come for their land when the June deadline elapsed, but they never came. And then suddenly, they have come to demolish our structures.
The issue can be traced back to 2015 when a similar exercise was conducted in the same area but could not be completed, the reason for which residents had to resettle here. We thought the case was in court, so the demolition wasn't going to come on today. They took us by surprise. Sunday's exercise is the beginning of a long-term plan to evacuate the traders from this area and eventually make space for private commercial activities.
And from Accra, let's go to Kumasi, where the Metropolitan Assembly has received support from the Kumasi Traditional Council to demolish all structures that impede the progress of the Kejetia Terminal project. The project, which started in 2015 and was scheduled to be completed in January 2018, has to be delayed due to impending land litigation involving the KMA and a private businessman over land ownership.
The $189 million facility, which started in July 2015, has facilities such as CCTV systems powered by a solar generation plant, modern sewage and waste management facilities, a water reservation and sewer treatment station. Other facilities to be provided include a parking lot, modern bus terminal, a clinic, a crèche and a police station. A private businessman, Asante Kakari, who is in a legal tussle with the KMA over the demolition of some of his buildings at Kejetia, is demanding compensation from the KMA before his other buildings could be pulled down to pave way for continuation of the project. Interacting with members of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Local Government, the Mayor of Kumasi, Osei Sibe Entry, was grateful to the Kumasi Traditional Council for its intervention. The council had ordered the Assembly to demolish structures impeding the project without compensation. The committee members were at the Kejetia terminal to acquaint themselves with the progress of work. They were impressed with the work done so far. The mayor of Kumasi, Osei Sibe Entry, said the Kejetia project has delayed as a result of the unavailability of land and a court injunction placed on one side of the area for the project by State Constructions Limited.
The challenges facing phase 1 has to do with some of the structures that is directly in front of the project. Some of the structures that is directly in front of the project happen to be the one belonging to the Allstate, which is sitting direct opposite zoo. But fortunately for us, with the help of Kumasi Traditional Council, we've gotten an answer.
He also appealed to residents to desist from politicizing the project.
To all those who are using the current central market, their fears have been allayed because one, they are not going to stay at home. They will have a place where they will move in for the new phase to take off.
And a swift response from the Ghana National Fire Service prevented the Ghana Olympics Committee building from being consumed by fire. Portions of the 5-story structure close to the new Accra Regional Hospital caught fire late Sunday morning but was contained within 2 rooms.
The fire reportedly started on the 3rd floor of the GOC building at about 11:48 a.m. Sunday. Personnel of the National Fire Service arrived 6 minutes later with 3 water tankers and fire engine, but access was a challenge because the doors to the affected floor were locked. A turntable ladder was later brought in to help break through the windows for access. Most office equipment and other valuables were, however, destroyed in the affected rooms.
The fire was confined to that office. It extended a bit to another office. From the Director of Finance's office, there is another office which was also affected. So 2 offices, I would say.
Acting Chief Fire Officer Eko Blankson was delighted over the response to the emergency.
They were able to confine the fire. If you go up, you can see that there is minimum damage. You can even see from here, they have not vented any place, and I wish to commend them.
Another factor that contributed significantly to the firefighting was the availability of landing valve. According to the Public Relations Officer of the National Fire Service, DO1 James Ohiniba Yakwating, the landing valves prevented the long drive for water to aid firefighting.
And these are valves that we connect our hoses to, and then we get water running through them to fight fire. And that was key in terms of helping us to get continuous flow of water. So I'll commend the owners of the building and the users as well for having such a facility. All those who use such buildings, if they're able to get one there, it will not be bad at all.
Few workers of Exim Bank, the occupants of the 3rd floor, rushed to the scene in an attempt to save a few items. The GOC building serves as office for 5 organizations: Exim Bank, Ghana AIDS Commission, National Labour Commission, National Road Safety Commission, and Ghana Youth Employment Development Agency. The cause of the fire is not immediately known.
And students of Dompoase Senior High School in the Adansi North District of the Ashanti region usually miss class lessons because they often have to attend to nature's call. Speaking in an interview with TV3, the headmaster of the school, Haruna Opong Boating, appealed to the authorities to help them address the problem. Here's a report by correspondent Benjamin Adu.
We were told by school authorities students on daily basis spend hours outside the school just to access a public toilet as the school lacks one. School currently houses over 2,000 students, and school authorities say the situation disrupts teaching and learning. Some of the students say they often have to go across the street and use part of their feeding fee to pay for the public toilet. The students fear of being knocked down by speeding vehicles and pleaded with authorities and government to construct a toilet facility for them in the school. The school is also faced with water problem, transport, as well as teachers and students' accommodation. Pipelines which were destroyed during the construction of the road linking Fomena to Asante Bekwai 2 years ago have still not been fixed. A student, Stephen Obeng Boating, shared his ordeal.
We don't have enough facilities for this school. Students, especially the boarders, choose to sleep outside, which is very bad.
On the teacher accommodation, this structure, which started in 1972, has been abandoned due to lack of funds. Out of the 70 teachers, only 30 of them stay on campus. The headmaster, Haruna Opong Boating, wished the problems could be solved as the school prepares for its 53rd anniversary.
I can't call it even KVIP because they are very old-fashioned. And it's one of our big challenges because it's exposing the students, especially the girls, to a lot of STIs. And every now and then they have to report to the hospital.
That's how we'll wrap up with News at 10. On behalf of the rest of the crew, good night. I'm Stephen Enti. There's more news at 3news.com.